Welcome. My name's Tony. If you've been to my sessions this fall, I've been covering yield, push, reach, and pull, which are sort of basic neurocellular movements. This idea of sort of infant to moving, grasping, reaching, pulling. And so we've just been covering this, but we've been at the wall, in a chair. I might have gone to the floor once. Today, we're going to make use of a chair. If you have a Theraband, that'd be great because it's just going to give you an opportunity to pull. If you don't have one, when you turn this video on, that's okay too. I'm going to demonstrate what it would look like without the Theraband. But we're going to work in the chair. We're going to work behind the chair. I figured because you're in your work environment, this just gives you an opportunity to move during your half-hour lunch break. You could take these concepts to the floor. And I may be able to weave in some of those ideas as we're moving. If I don't, my apologies, but I think it's pretty straightforward. So it's yield is our first embodiment. Push is the next, the sense of resisting gravitational pull, reaching, and then pulling something towards us. But it's going to feel more like just a movement practice with those four principles now woven together. The last four sessions, they were separated a little bit, but inevitably they are kind of two sides of one coin. So they complement each other really nicely. So we're going to start in the chair and plant our feet on the floor, but go ahead and let it be just a soft planting. So if you're barefoot, great. If you're in socks, great. If you have shoes on, that's fine as well. But we're going to just take a moment to yield our body and the weight of our body into the base of the chair, into the back of the chair. I do have a little blanket thrown over the back of my chair. So if you find yourself really pitched back and that's uncomfortable, go ahead and just see if you can stuff a pillow, or maybe you have an article of clothing you could roll up, or a hand towel, just to give yourself a little more support higher up. And then we're just going to breathe here for a moment. I find it can be really helpful when you're trying to change your state from active to a little bit more internal. We're going to notice some internal sensations now. If you can take a beat and just sip your breath in and blow it out across pursed lips for a longer out breath. So trying that again, just sipping a breath in through the nose and breathing out. You might feel your breath coming into your back ribs on your next inhale. And blowing out, firming the abdomen on the out breath. See if we can keep the abdomen firm. Breathe into the back body on your next in-breath. You're welcome to close your eyes as you blow out this next breath. Let's do one more together. Breathing in and breathing out. And just taking a moment, noticing if anything's changed in the tension, the quality of tension in your body. Perhaps the quality of tension in your mind softened a smidge. Extending your exhale, if you can remember EX, extending the exhale can just give us a chance to drop back into our parasympathetic nervous system. So if we're up and agitated, or honestly, like we do a lot of like stress is related to sympathetic activation of the nervous system. It's that fight or flight feeling. But there's also evidence to suggest that being in a state of connectedness with our fellow beings, being in a state of curiosity, right? We also know what it's like to be stressed with that feeling of like, wow, this is interesting, or wow, I'm really enjoying this work, or wow, I'm really enjoying a connection to someone, right? So that's also that elevated state. So I just want to point that out because I think we do a lot of stress is always bad, and it's not. But in terms of our mental dialogue, and particularly when we're feeling like we're trying to accomplish a lot. So this gentle extension of the exhalation can help us soften, can help us slow down. It can help us begin noticing these internal cues. And so next, I want you just this idea of tension in the body. Same thing, tension as a word has a lot of negative connotations currently in our culture, but we need tension to sit here. We're going to need tension to push up out of the chair, to reach, to pull something towards us. So we can begin noticing the quality of tension in our bodies and discerning, look at that. I am really tense in my jaw, or oh, I am holding the world on my shoulders. Can I send a little kindness, send a little breath, right? Maybe it comes with a sigh, and you're just sending your breath to those points of tension in your body that feel like they're a bit too much. And then what happens? And can you begin in this process just to notice the weight of your feet on the floor, your thighs and pelvis in the chair, the contours of your spine, perhaps resting against the chair, a pillow, something else? Is there softness? Is it firm? What are the weight of your hands on your thighs? What does that feel like? And can you allow the tension in the body to soften? And really imagine you're allowing your body to yield into the chair. Now, I'm going to give you a minute, just breathing into yielding. Extending the exhalation, sighing if it's helpful, pursed lipped exhalation if that's helpful. Just experiment. Breathing in and out through the nose if you prefer. Let's take one more yielded breath together. Now I'm going to invite you just very tenderly to begin pushing your feet and your hands downward. So if you think of letting the heels maybe pushing into the floor, maybe noticing how that energy rises up through your legs. And if you push your palms into your thighs, how the energy rises up through the elbows to the shoulders. You might feel your abdomen begin to lift, the spine, crown of the head, reaching away, pushing down. And then let's go ahead and relax everything and let the whole body yield again to the shape of the chair. And then push again, pushing, sending energy down through the legs and feeling that energy reverberating up through the legs, out through the crown of the head. And all of that helpful muscular tension that allows your body, supports your body around the skeleton, right? So let's take that one more time, relaxing and then pushing into the feet, pushing into the hands. Maybe your spine is beginning to creep off of the chair, right? There's a level of energy and push that feels satisfying and lifted. And then relax. Okay, so we've gone from yielding to pushing. We're going to do plenty more, not to worry. And now let's just go ahead and let one arm come up overhead into a reach. And maybe the first time, it's just a gentle movement of the arm overhead. It's not quite sure anything more than articulating upward. Maybe there's a look, a reach with the eyes, and then down. And this time I'm going to invite you to reach as if you were reaching for something just out of reach, like an apple off a tree or a lemon. We have lots of apples in Maine. You probably have more lemons and oranges, right? Reaching, 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 and pulling down and reaching up. And you might be noticing that the reach up, if we think about it, is also a push, right? So there could be a push to that reach. And look at that. We can pull downward. So you can see like all of these movements begin to blend, right? They're really not so delineated. They're kind of the other side of a gesture, or sometimes they're contained within the same gesture. So reaching, pushing, pulling. What happens now if you push across the center line? I'm going to turn my chair so you can see this. So if you push and then pull and push and then pull. What if you push down, push up? Let them become a reach and pull and push and a reach and pull. So if you have a Theraband nearby, couple of thoughts. If you don't have a Theraband, really don't worry about it. You can imitate me. Sometimes our little mirror neurons kick in, right, when we see someone else doing a thing, and we can imagine the resistance. So I'm going to push my arm, but it's also kind of pulling, right? I'm pulling the length of the band, pushing and pulling at the same time. So I've got the Theraband wrapped around my back, under my armpits, pushing. And the pull back is really a softening in this instance, right? But this can give us a chance. I could take it across, reaching across. So if you don't have a band, you can imitate the gesture and imagine you are pushing something, right? You're pushing water, you're pushing a really heavy door closed. Okay. Then if I wanted to imitate pulling, right? So that would have looked like just pushing really, really hard. Imagining you're pushing against resistance, pushing forward. Okay, now we're going to take the pushing forward with a pulling back. So if I hold the band out in front, or you just take your fists out in front, pulling with one arm, pushing with the other. And I haven't said a thing about my legs or my core, but I suspect if you are adding a bit of resistance to those aspects of pulling and pushing through the arms and the shoulders, your feet are going to plug in, your core is going to plug in, and it's going to be a whole body endeavor, right? So now I'm pulling and pushing simultaneously. I let go of the strap, pull as I push. Pull as I push. And then you could also let this become a tempo change. If I let go of the resistance and I just push and pull and push, pull, and I'm beginning to feel some burning potentially in the top of my shoulders, I could push across, push across. Good. Let it go. Let's take a moment, shake everything out. We're going to start adding more with the legs. It's going to be a whole body reach. Therabands are really fun to play with if you don't have one. I know they kind of associated with PT and not everybody loves going to physical therapy, but they're fun. So what happens if we reach, and I'm going to push and reach here, right? You could imagine this on the floor, maybe if you were on your abdomen and you were pushing up and reaching, and then letting that yield back. Let everything soften. And then pushing into the other hand, reaching with the other hand, pushing into the soles of the feet, reaching. Now we're beginning to feel the spine as well in a directional change, right? We've just been here in neutral, where there's still a reach through the spine, axial extension. Now we're going to reach forward and back. And reach. And my feet are pushing into the floor. Reach, push, pull, yield. Reach, push, pull, yield. Let's do that once more. And then we're going to use this to come up out of the chair. And relax back. Take a moment, yield. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. It's really lovely to just take a moment to pause, notice the sensations in your body. Notice if your breath rhythm has changed or your heart rate has changed, tension quality in the body, tension quality in the mind. Are you beginning to feel yourself in space? Do you feel your muscles engage around your bones? Does that feel like it's pumping blood? That might be nice. Does it feel exhausting? That might not be so nice, but you may develop a sense for like, oh, that's interesting. I was tired. I think I'm tired. Now I'm feeling something different, right? So we can also just begin to discern the stories we have, not so much stories. I don't mean to say it's in our heads, but the level of just pushing forward, right? The rhythm of life, we're pushing, pushing, pushing. So as we get to drop back, yield, pay attention to these muscular engagements, pay attention to the ways in which our body works in synergy, suddenly it can create a little bit more energy, right? So this is this sort of stopping to give ourselves a moment of restoration. We're going to reach back, take a hold of the back of your chair, and depends on your chair. Maybe you need to hold on to the seat. Maybe you can hold on to the back. If there are arms or it's one of those desk, like an office chair, it might be a little challenging. You want to lock your wheels, probably, or just be really firm in your legs. And then let your chest open, let your arms come back. I'm squeezing my shoulder blades towards each other. And I'm just taking a moment here to stretch across the chest. I'm pulling backwards. I'm pushing down with the soles of my feet. And I'm reaching out through the spine. My tailbone reaches back. The crown of my head reaches up and out. And I'm just going to take a moment here to breathe. Gently coming back to vertical, releasing the arms and letting them float forward. I'm going to bring my heels back a smidge behind my knees so that as I reach forward, I'm going to push down into my legs and come up to standing and then sitting back down. So reaching back, hinging at the top of the thighs, reaching back with the tailbone, reaching out through the crown of the head, reaching with the arms and floating down. So this is a sit stand. And coming up and coming down. You could also think about coming forward with the arms overhead, reaching up. Sorry, my arms get cut off. Reaching back, floating down. One more time. And coming up, let those arms come down. We're going to come around to the back of the chair. I'm going to just mess with the angle of my screen a smidge to be sure you can see overhead. So if I come behind my chair, I'm just going to put it out of the way for a second. And we're going to take another somatic practice called top shelf reach. It's a pretty obvious why. So you're going to reach up with your right hand if you want to mirror me. So the right hand reaches up as if you were reaching for the top shelf. And that can be where you start. I'll change sides just so I'm not confused for the plant behind me. So I'm reaching up and then I'm actually going to lift my your left heel and the left hip, squeezing this armpit towards the hip as that right arm is reaching for the top shelf. And then I'm going to let my heel come down, let my hip come down, let the arm come down. So bringing the other arm up. So your left arm comes up, you're reaching for the top shelf, and then the right heel, right hip comes squeezing up. And then floating that hip down, floating the heel down, floating the arm down. So we're reaching. And if it feels skillful, you could imagine pulling as you come down. So it depends. Sometimes it's really helpful to stay engaged the whole way through, like, oh, I'm really reaching and I'm gonna pull that thing, right? You know those attic, and we have one of those ladders up to our attic where you have to reach up, grab the string, and then pull that spring-loaded ladder down, right? So I can imagine that weight and resistance as I pull down. Some of us may want to be like, nope, I just want to reach gently and float down. I like that floating sensation, right? So we can also change the quality of our attention and have a different experience. That could be more ephemeral, right? Feeling like I'm just moving in space. I'm still taking the same gestures, just changing the quality, right? Good. And then taking a moment, we're just going to shake things out, wiggle things out. I'm going to invite you to come around to the back of your chair. What do I want to say about this before we start? Sometimes it can be helpful just so that your chair is not going to move. I took up my yoga mat because you may be on a rug, right? There are times where it's going to be helpful just to sort of shove your chair up to the wall. It may not be necessary if you're on a rolling chair and you can lock your tires. I would recommend doing that, your wheels, just so that you know your chair isn't going to go zinging off. So let's come to the back of the chair. I'm going to take a gentle push down through my hands and feel the crown of the head reaching away from not only my tailbone, but my heels. So it's just nice and tall. And I'm using a little bit of pressure through the arms. What I'm not doing is pulling my shoulder blades down. I'm trying to keep my shoulder blades floating wide on the back body. Noticing if that feels true for you. And we're going to step one foot back. You can step your left or your right, depending on if you want to mirror me. And just give a stretch. We're going to push the floor away. We're going to resist gravity. We're going to push down into the back of the chair and then yield the body weight back down. There might also be a way in which thinking of yourself as pulling your body weight back to the floor creates a sense of muscular tension that's helpful, right? So as we're resisting gravity, almost like you're pulling yourself down and then pushing yourselves up, reaching through the crown of the head. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this foot in and take that on the other side. So we're just pushing upward, pushing downward into the chair, upward with the crown of the head, and then pulling back down, letting that heel have a stretch, letting the calf muscle have a stretch. Breathing. And letting the breath come naturally. I'm not going to assign a direction here. And last one, coming up. Go ahead and step that foot forward. Taking a moment, we're just going to pause in yoga, what we call mountain pose. Could be called neutral. We're just standing in the feet, letting the arms come down by our sides. Maybe the palms turn forward. Maybe they stay facing your side. Just taking a beat, noticing things. If it's skillful to close your eyes, you're welcome to. If that makes you dizzy, I'd recommend leaving your eyes open. If it's skillful to leave your eyes closed, just feeling the nature of your body, the feet supporting your frame, muscular tension, muscular balance, hopefully holding you in space. Fluttering the eyes back open when you're ready. Coming back to your chair if you opened up. If you didn't, that's fine. I'm going to step back to a plank pose. So some of you may practice this pose on the floor. Again, this is a great pushing practice, right? If you practice yoga, you might go from plank to the floor, or you might go from plank to downward dog, reaching the tailbone back, reaching the crown of the head away, reaching the hips over your heels, reaching the arms overhead, and then pushing into the back of your chair, flowing the body weight up and forward, maybe lifting your heels, coming back to plank. You can see this is a pretty handy spot to have the chair wedged against the wall because I don't want it to go out from under me. So I'm just reaching and pushing and pulling, right? So there's a little bit of once I've pushed my hips back, and then when I want to come back to plank, I'm going to activate the pulling muscles. You could do this on the floor between plank and down dog. You could also do this on the floor on your hands and knees, pushing back to a folded pose, child's pose, and then forward to table. Right, so it just becomes a place to practice this push and pull through the shoulders, body weight, back and forth. And yes, the next time I come up to plank, if it felt skillful in your body and your chair is definitely not going anywhere, you might just add a gentle push up, folding the elbows out or in by your side, right? You might know that as chaturanga. You might know that as a push up. You might know that as something you don't like doing. You might be fine with doing it. If it feels too much on the chair, you might go to a wall and just experiment with lowering, leaning your body into the wall. My heels are up and I could play with different configurations. Again, this just becomes a push practice. It's enlivening, right? There's a lot of blood pumping. There's some effort. You're going to notice your heart rate changing, potentially your breath rate changing, right? So just feeling into push and then reaching back with the tailbone, reaching away with the crown of the head. We're going to add another reach here. I'm going to reach back with my heel, coming into, this could be warrior 3, could be Romanian deadlift. If you were a strength person, it could be a skating pose, right? There's all sorts of places this gets used in all kinds of different physical culture. Bringing that leg down, taking the other leg back, hinging at the top of your supporting leg, reaching through that back heel and feeling the heel to your tailbone, to your crown of the head. That long line and the fingertips reaching overhead. Could reach back, pointing the toes, leaving the toes pointing downward. It's up to you. Letting that leg come down and then gently walking the feet back to come back to vertical, taking a moment, letting everything just gently come back. You might be feeling circulation change, muscle tension change. Breath rate, heartbeat. Pausing for a moment. I'm still holding on to the chair. You're welcome to. You're also welcome to let go and allow just a moment of vertical, anchored to the floor through your feet. Eyes gently close if that's skillful. I'm going to invite us to take one more reach practice at the wall before we come back to the chair to close. So if you come to, I don't know, I'm about 6, 8 inches away from the wall, and I'm going to reach my arms up overhead. So this is just going to give me a little bit of friction. It's going to give me something to pull against. What I'm going to do is walk my fingers up, and the minute I can't walk them any higher, I'm going to release my heels so that I'm coming up towards the ball of the foot. You go only as far as feels skillful in your feet. Coming all the way up is accessible, great. If you're in shoes and just a little bit off the floor is all that's possible, that's fine too. Don't stress about that. What we're doing though is we're just creating this kind of reach up the wall, letting your armpits lift, and then we're going to create some drag. So I want my hands to really just stay heavy on the wall as I lower my body weight back down, letting my weight come back into my heels and the arms following body weight. And then I'm going to take it again. So I'm going to crawl up, reaching upward, letting the heels release as much as possible. Reaching. And then there's a kind of pulling that's really happening with my heels. My heels are pulling my body back down. And there's also a quality of yield. So as I allow the body weight to do the pulling, there's a way in which the muscular tension, it's different. So I'm going to crawl back up one more time. So just notice, what is it like to crawl, to be active in this reach? And then what is it like to suddenly shift, lowering the body weight down, coming into more of a passive pulling and allowing the weight of your body to bring the arms down. And then let's go ahead and leave the weight in the heels, folding at the elbows and allowing gravitational pull. So you're simultaneously yielding and pulling, yielding and pulling until you release the wall. You're back to neutral, taking a moment to notice. Breath in. I've changed my mind. I was going to send us back to the chair to close, but I think it might be nicer to end on a little bit of a rhythmic note so that you don't get all settled back into your chair when you have to get back into your day. So if you want to just step your feet wide, I'm going to push and pull, push and pull, and let it be gentle. So it's just basically like a nice diagonal reach, pull, reach, pull. I don't have anything I'm pulling against, so it's a little bit more of that floating tempo. Maybe reaching overhead, just kind of organizing the body here, getting the upper half, lower half, reaching and pushing, pushing and pulling, be coming back here, and then sliding into a nice active elbow bends, so pushing and pulling, twisting at the waist. See if you can keep your legs and hips steady, and then go ahead and just shake everything out. Shake out a leg, and there you go. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you a good day.